Greetings and welcome back to room 303 and our studies through Gibran's Prophet. We are in lecture number 16 of a proposed 30 lectures. This poem that we'll be looking at on reason and passion. This is of course the very old question, what is more important, the head, reason, or the heart, passion? And it won't shock us that Al-Mustafa will in fact give us a view that will be an integralist view. This is another trinity that I'm going to suggest, this collection of these three poems, from reason and passion to pain and then finally to self-knowledge. Now, our assumptions are that you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net. Down that left-hand side, you'll find our playlist. And I'm hopeful that you've already been exposed to, first of all, an introductory set of comments, following then all the way up to, and we just finished with, On Freedom. Now, just to give us a little bit of background information on this amazing little poem here, Gibran's going to play around with this idea. It's a very, very old one. It goes all the way back to the very ancient Upanishadic tradition, the Platonic orientations, that in some ways the life we live is like on a battlefield because it's this struggle. Obviously the Bhagavad Gita comes to mind for sure. And we're going to see this. And of course the goal is a certain kind of spiritual, we've used this term already, perspicacity, right? And that ability to renew oneself. He's even going to reference the phoenix in this project. True peace then will be the acceptance of all the different elements of one's personality. That is to say, the attempt is always balance or harmony. And again, the romanticism of Gibran will cut both ways. That is to say, he doesn't necessarily want to refuse rationalism, as romantics are often going to play the game, but he's very much obviously an observer and a follower of the love of nature. So we'll see both play out. Let's enjoy. We'll begin maybe with Almitra, the priestess again, right? She's not named, but is referenced as the priestess. And the priestess spoke again and said, "Speak to us of reason and passion." And he answered saying, "Your soul is oftentimes a battlefield upon which your reason and your judgment wage war against your passion and your appetite." Now, this is a very ancient idea. Of course, it's a biblical idea, and in almost all of the religious traditions, there will be this notion that war and struggle are a good way to think about the human existence, especially as it relates to these two sides, reason and judgment. Okay, as opposed to passion and appetite, the desires and all of that. Wood, he says it this way, and it's kind of a rare line, because he doesn't speak this way as being the savior or the one who would like to save very, very often in this collection of poems. Would that I could be the peacemaker in your soul, that I might turn the discord and the rivalry of your elements into oneness and melody. Of course, his referencing to music is ubiquitous throughout these amazing poems. But how shall I, unless you yourselves be also the peacemakers, nay, the lovers of all your elements? This idea of personal accountability, I think this is one of the most important and prescient notions in our study of the prophet, and it's this. Notice how he just said it. I wish I could just make everything better. But you're the only one that can do that. Right? You're the only, all I can do is point the way. I can only point the direction. And what is it Whitman says in Song of Myself 46? You must find out for yourselves. I hear you're asking questions I cannot answer. You must find out for yourself. This idea that you have to travel, you have to take the open road is Whitman's obviously game as well. And now he'll come to this discussion between reason and passion. Your reason and your passion are the rudder and the sails of your seafaring soul. Now, of course, channeling Homer's Odyssey, we're going to play now with the ship metaphor. And what's amazing is he hasn't played this game yet really with us. Ships. Now, of course, this is kind of lost on you guys. I get it, because most of you, unless you sail, you really don't have much of a sense of it. What is it that makes the sailboat go? Well, obviously the wind and the sails. Well, what is it that directs the sails? Well, that's that rudder. That's down underneath. Well, you kind of have to have both if you're going to sustain much of a sailing voyage, right? So he's going to play that game. If either your sails or your rudder be broken, you can but toss and drift, or else be held at a standstill in mid-seas. For reason, ruling alone, is a force confining, right? In other words, lack of freedom. And passion, unattended, is a flame that burns to its own destruction. So, the dilemma is, are you slaved in a prison with your reason, or are you burned up with the passion fire? Therefore, let your soul exalt your reason to the height of passion, that it may sing. We're back to more melodic references here. And let it direct your passion with reason, that your passion may live through its own daily resurrection, and like the phoenix, rise above its own ashes. Well, it's brilliant. Some have argued that what he's arguing here, what he's suggesting here, is that he's taking that old paradigm from Plato's Republic, that the tripartite view of the soul. You'll remember, we gave full lectures on this at learnstrong.net if you want to run it to ground. Reason must dominate over emotions and desires, and you'll remember that we kind of put it in the form of a pyramid because it seems that there's far less reason than there is emotions and desires. But you got it, your reason has to be in check. There seems to be more here, a congruence, right, between the two to create this spiritual equilibrium, as we might think of it. Or I like maybe even better, because he uses it this way, harmony, right, the harmony that we're looking for. And of course, the phoenix, it makes all the sense in the world that he would play that game. The true resurrection is the resurrection that happens when we're able to balance between reason and passion, and we're able to somehow use both of them well. He says it this way: I would have you consider your judgment and your appetite even as you would two loved guests in your house. You'll remember, of course, in our lectures on the Iliad, Xenia, the idea of hospitality. He says you've got to welcome both of these, both reason as judgment as well as appetite, desires. You have to welcome them both into your house. They're both a part of you. Surely, you would not honor one guest above the other, for he who is more mindful of one loses the love and the faith of both. In other words, we mustn't argue that we're going to either be dominated by our reason or dominated by our appetites and our passions. No, they have to sing together, right? They have to sing together. And then he uses a beautiful reference to nature. Among the hills, when you sit in the cool shade of the white poplars, sharing the peace and serenity of distant fields and meadows, then let your heart say in silence, God rests in reason. And when the storm comes and the mighty wind shakes the forest and thunder and lightning proclaim the majesty of the sky, then let your heart say in awe, God moves in passion. And since you are a breath in God's sphere and a leaf in God's forest, you too should rest in reason and move in passion. Well, some have said this is some of the most beautiful melodic poetry of all of the prophet. What are we going to draw out of this at 2a? Well, I think it's right there. God rests in reason, God moves in passion. We must rest in reason, but we must move in passion. That is to say, be a lover or be accepting of all of these different elements of your temperament. And of course, the ultimate goal is what? Harmony, balance, always the key, right? At 2b, I love the word pictures. I love the ship and the rudder as being reason. I love the sails as being passion. You'll remember in one of our earlier poems, he talked about the mast, right, of a ship. And of course, the sails, the passion, is the second part. And there's got to be this harmony. But I also like the word picture, that life is kind of like a battlefield where we're struggling against these different kinds of parts of our personality, and we're trying to balance them in some useful way. At 3a and how we relate this, obviously Plato's Republic comes to mind. We mentioned it. I'd like to challenge you to think about our study of Dante's Divine Commedia. We've given full lectures at learnstrong.net as well. Think about, in many ways, the Divine Comedy is about trying to find that middle ground between, on the one hand, reason, and on the other hand, judgment. They've got to go together, and then on the other hand, the passion and the appetites. They've got to go together, right? Also, of course, we've mentioned it already a number of times, and I think that a whole lot of Gibran's work comes out of his study of the Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu's great treatise on harmony, right? Trying to find the balance between the two. Of course, at 3b, how are we going to own a passage like this? Well, what was a time that you did feel balanced, that you felt harmony, that you felt like everything was kind of the way that it should be. And of course, we could ask, what was a time when you did not? And how are you feeling right now? Now, as we move from this poem, we will move from reason and passion in this trinity, as I'm calling it, this collection of 3 poems, to now, and it seems to me perfectly apropos that we would go from reason and passion to pain, suffering, the theodicy question, right? As we then will ultimately move on to self-knowledge and the ways in which I'm hopeful this study is helping you to learn more about yourself. Thank you.